Hi everyone, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Chris and today we are going to be preparing for Thanksgiving Day desserts. We are going to be baking some pumpkins for the pumpkin pie. We're going to be making some cream cheese for the cheesecake, and we're going to be making some graham crackers for the cheesecake crust. We're going to make all of this from scratch, so let's get started. I'm going to preheat the oven to 350 degrees. I'm going to take a baking sheet here, line it with some parchment paper to make this a little bit easier. I think I need a new knife here. This is the best one I have, and it still is not really sharp enough. I'm going to scoop all of these inside parts, the seeds and these stringy bit, into the bowl. I'm going to spray these with a little bit of olive oil from this Misto oil sprayer that I have. If you've never used one of these, I highly recommend it. They're so nice. These misters just use regular oil. You can put whatever oil you like in them, and it turns into a cooking spray. So you don't have to ever buy another bottle of cooking oil spray ever again if you have one of these. Or a couple if you want multiple types of oil. I'm just going to sprinkle with a little bit of salt. Flip them face down. There. Now it's time to put the pumpkins in the oven. I'm going to set the timer for 45 minutes, and then we'll check and see how they're doing. In the meantime, we'll move on to our next task. For the graham crackers, I'm going to be using the King Arthur graham cracker recipe. I will link it down in the description below. We're going to start these graham crackers by mixing 1 cup of whole wheat pastry flour, 1 cup of all-purpose flour. The recipe says to use 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, but I like brown sugar better, so that's what I'm going to use. We need a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Oh, that's about a teaspoon. Or just go crazy with it, whatever. Let's try to put this back in. That's okay. Cinnamon's always good. You can't go wrong. 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And mix this together. set that aside. In a separate bowl, we're gonna put one large egg. We need 1/4 cup of honey. Before I put the honey, I'm going to oil this. It'll help the honey come out a little bit better. I have some local honey here that I'm going to be using. One-quarter cup of oil. The recipe calls for vegetable oil, but I don't use vegetable oil because vegetable oil is really inflammatory. So I'm using a coconut oil. It's a coconut MCT oil. It's just a coconut oil that's quite good for you, and it stays liquid at room temperature, unlike a regular coconut oil that I would have to melt first before I put in here. So to this, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of milk. It says to whisk this together. This honey just does not want to dissolve. That's a little better. Now we're going to mix this into the flour. It does say that the dough will be pretty stiff. We're just going to knead this until it's smooth. Gently, not hard. There we are. Actually looks and feels really nice. Smells really nice too. I'm going to take some plastic wrap and wrap this dough. The recipe says to chill it for at least 1 hour until the dough is firm. But if needed, it can go more than 1 hour. So I'm gonna put this in the fridge and we'll move on to our cream cheese. To make the cream cheese, we are going to need a heavy bottom pot and a thermometer. You wanna have a good thermometer. This is a thermometer made specifically for dairy. I got it from New England Cheesemaking Supply. I can link it in the description below if you're interested, but I really love this thermometer. We're going to need 2 cups of milk, either raw or pasteurized is fine. We're gonna need 6 cups of cream, also raw or pasteurized is fine. I have whipping cream here. It's the same as heavy cream. We will need a half a cup of cultured buttermilk, a very small amount of rennet, only 2 drops. And we're gonna need 1/2 teaspoon of calcium chloride. I need the calcium chloride because I'm using pasteurized milk for this cheese. If you're using raw milk and raw cream, you don't need to add any calcium chloride to your cheese. During the pasteurization process, you lose some of the calcium that it was originally in the milk when it was raw. So adding the calcium chloride into the cheese, it's going to add that calcium back that was taken out during the pasteurization process, and it's going to form a much better cheese. So the milk and the cream, they can be pasteurized, but not ultra pasteurized. The difference is just the temperature that they're brought up to. Ultra pasteurized is brought to a much higher temperature than just pasteurized milk. And when you bring it up to those higher temperatures, it starts to denature some. And so when you try to make cheese with ultra pasteurized milk, the proteins in it have broken down some and the cheese doesn't really form. So you want to make sure that you get only pasteurized or raw milk and cream when you make cheese. I know for me, finding cream that is not ultra pasteurized is really hard. So I have a couple of local farms that sell in, I think, 1 or 2 of the grocery stores in the area, but it's not in my town. I have to travel more towards the city in order to get it. Every once in a while, the farm near me that has raw milk will have cream, but you can't count on her having it because, you know, she only has so much. I'm gonna start with 2 cups of milk and 6 cups of cream. Each of these are pints, so I know that there are 2 cups each. This cream was actually in the freezer. I pulled it out last night, but it's still not completely unfrozen yet. But that's okay. It won't hurt anything. So we have all the cream in here, the cream and the milk. I'm gonna heat this up on medium-low until it gets to room temperature, 70 degrees Fahrenheit, 21 degrees Celsius. We don't want to heat it any higher than that. I'm going to stick my thermometer in here. I'm gonna leave it in here to keep an eye on the temperature so I can make sure it doesn't go over 70 degrees. Our cheese is at temperature. I'm going to mix a 1/4 teaspoon of calcium chloride into 1/4 cup of non-chlorinated water. It's very important that you use non-chlorinated water. This is a cultured cheese that we're making, and if we use chlorinated water, just by the nature of why they put chlorine in water, it will kill off the culture that we put into this cheese. And that is not what we want, so we want to make sure that you use non-chlorinated water. I'm using distilled water from the store because my tap water is chlorinated. Spring water from the store would work great as well, or if you have a good quality tap water, then that's even better. In here, I'm going to put 2 drops of rennet. This is 2 tablespoons of non-chlorinated water. We're not using very much at all. It's barely any rennet. This is going to be our culture. For this cheese, it is what's called a mesophilic cheese. And that means that the culture works best at room temperatures. If you get it too hot, then the culture will just kill off. And if you keep it too cold, then it won't want to do anything. Mesophilic likes room temperature. Thermophilic is the one that likes a little bit of heat, like the yogurt in my yogurt video. We're gonna take a half a cup of this buttermilk and mix it in. And the calcium chloride. Mix those in really well. Now it is time to add the rennet. I'm just gonna pour that in. The rennet, you don't want to get aggressive with your stirring here. You want to make sure that it kind of is evenly distributed throughout. And then kind of still the milk. We're going to cover this pot and let it sit and culture for an hour and a half, just at room temperature. After the 90 minutes are done, we're going to come back and we're going to see if this cheese has formed to the point where it can pull away from the side a little bit from the pan instead of being liquid like it is now. While this sits, let's check on our pumpkin. Here is our pumpkin. It looks really nice. See, the fork just slides right in. That's perfect. I'm gonna let these cool a little bit before I scoop out the flesh. The pumpkin's cooled down enough that I can handle it, so we're gonna go ahead and scoop that out and puree it up. This bowl is definitely not large enough, so I'm going to put it in this little bit bigger one. And I'm going to use my immersion blender, just like I did with the butternut squash and the butternut squash bread video, to puree this up. Our pumpkin puree is all ready to go to make our pie. Well, this will probably make several pies, so we'll see what we find to do with it. We'll make our pumpkin pie for Thanksgiving and see how much is left over and see what else we can make out of it. Our graham cracker dough has been in the fridge for over an hour. It's nice and firm. We're going to go ahead and get these crackers made. I'm going to preheat the oven to 300 degrees. The directions say to lay out a piece of parchment paper and work the dough in halves. Set that half off to the side. Now we are aiming to get this dough about 1/6 of an inch thick. Probably should have flattened this a little bit thinner before I put it in the fridge, but it's okay. Dust this with a little flour. It doesn't say to, but man, it's getting kind of sticky. Now you can see that's pretty thin. I don't think I can fit both of these on one baking sheet. I don't think I have one big enough. This isn't the prettiest layout ever of dough, but we're just gonna crumble this into a graham cracker cheesecake crust. I didn't really care if it's not pretty. Honestly, even if we were just gonna eat it, it doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter what it looks like as long as it tastes good. Like, it's all gonna go into your mouth and disappear anyway, so who cares if it's a little bit ugly. I'm gonna pop this one into the top and this one into the bottom. We'll cook them for 10 minutes, get them out, brush them with some milk, add some cinnamon and sugar, and then pop them back in the oven for about 18 to 20 minutes. And it sounds like there's a whole process to finish them off, so we'll go through that together after they're done. There's about 21 minutes left on the timer for the cheese before we check it. I'm gonna go ahead and get a pot of water here boiling, and I'm gonna add the cheesecloth. We're gonna use the cheesecloth to strain the cheese, and we're gonna boil this to make sure that it's completely sanitized. I don't want to accidentally introduce any bad bacteria into the cheese, especially since we'll have it nicely cultured with really good bacteria. So we're just gonna boil this to make sure that doesn't happen and that our cheese doesn't take on any kind of a funky taste because we accidentally introduced some bad bacteria. This cloth will boil for 12 minutes and then I will just dump it in a strainer. Our timer went off for the crackers, so we're gonna pull those out. I'm gonna do it one by one here. Just gonna coat them with this milk. I'm gonna sprinkle on some cinnamon, trying not to kind of go crazy with it like I did in the actual mix. Some sugar. I don't want a lot, just a little. Okay. We're gonna pop this back in. Here's the other one. I'm gonna set my phone timer here for 18 minutes. And we'll come back and check on those. It's been 12 minutes, so I'm gonna take my cheesecloth over to the sink and I'm gonna strain it through here. Don't mind the dishes, I haven't had a chance to clean up yet. I'm just going to dump it in there. And it is hot, so be careful. I do want to spread it out a little bit. It'll cool down faster if you don't leave it in a big clump. The timer went off for the cheese, so let's see how it's doing. You see, it might be easier, how it's starting to kind of pull away from the sides a little bit. It's not super thick, and that's okay. This is a very, very soft cheese. So all we want it to do is to start to pull away from the sides and not be completely liquid. That's what we're looking for, and that's exactly what we have. Before we take care of this cheese, the timer just went off for the graham crackers. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to turn the oven off and I'm gonna prop this door open. I'm gonna leave the crackers in and I'm just gonna let the oven cool down until it's warm but not hot. So it doesn't need to be cooled all the way, but we're gonna leave the graham crackers in there until it gets mostly cooled down. Back to cheese. What I'm gonna do for this cheese, first off, this has cooled down significantly, so I'm gonna squeeze out all the extra water. I'm just gonna drape this in. And I'm going to ladle the cheese in here. I'm not gonna pour it. Since this is a pretty delicate cheese, we wanna be delicate with it. You can see how thick it's gotten. That looks really nice. Here we have our really lovely, beautiful looking cream cheese. I'm going to tie opposite corners of this cheesecloth together. I got some baling twine here from some straw I got from my garden earlier this summer. I'm gonna take it. We need to hang this. You can see it's dripping. That drip is the whey slowly draining out of the cheese. We're gonna leave this hanging for 6 to 12 hours or until it stops dripping. Once it stops dripping, we're gonna put it in the fridge for a few hours, or at least a few hours, and then it should be ready to eat. In the meantime, my oven has cooled down and the graham crackers are pretty much done. We're gonna leave it in this oven to completely cool down for another 20 minutes. Once the 20 minutes are up, we're gonna pull it out, see what they look like, and let them cool completely. The timer went off, our 20 minutes are up. Let's take a look. Here's batch number 1. And number 2. I think they look pretty darn good. Now I forgot to do this, but when we pulled them out to put the milk coating on them, as well as the cinnamon and sugar, we were supposed to cut them into pieces. You know, like take a pizza cutter and cut lines into these so that we could break them apart later. I didn't do that, but it doesn't really matter because I'm not serving these as just graham crackers anyway. I'm going to grind them up and make them into a cheesecake crust. But if you plan on making these for like actual snack crackers, then just make sure that you take a pizza cutter or a knife or something and cut those lines into the dough so that they're easy to break apart when you take them out. I'm gonna do a little cheat and I'm gonna taste this and see how it is, but it cracks nice, just like a nice cracker. Oh my god. These actually do taste really good. They're not quite as flaky as the graham crackers you get from the store, but their taste is really good. They will probably firm up even more as they completely cool. I would say that these are a complete success. I think they will make a wonderful cheesecake crust. We have our pumpkin puree ready to go for our pie. Our graham crackers are done and ready to go for our crust. We just need our cream cheese to finish dripping out the way, and then that will be ready to go into the fridge and it'll be done too. This prep work that we did today will make on Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, so much easier. We'll be able to knock out the desserts and it won't take nearly as much time because we took the time to get everything ready today. If you can do that, I highly recommend it. It will make your time, your holiday time, so much less stressful, especially if you are making the dinner on top of the desserts. That is a lot of work, and the more prep work you can get done in advance, the easier the actual holiday will be. Not even just for cooking, but you'll also be able to spend that time with family and friends that would have been spent prepping if you hadn't done it in advance. So I will see you back tonight when we check on our cream cheese and see if it's done yet. It's been about 6.5 to 7 hours or so since we hung our cream cheese. I'm just opening it up, see how it looks. There it is. Looks really, really beautiful. I'm just gonna take it out and flip it into this bowl here. I'm going to salt the cheese. This is 1 teaspoon of salt. I'm gonna mix that in. And there we have some gorgeous cream cheese. This is going to go into the refrigerator now. It needs to cool for at least 3 hours to completely firm up, and then it's ready to use. It's exciting. Thank you so much for joining me today as I got this project done and made this coming Wednesday when I make the desserts so much easier. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to be notified when I upload my next video, you can click the bell right next to subscribe and you'll get a notification when my next video is uploaded. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you next time.